Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. My name is Mackenzie Donnelly. I am doing a management report on one of the local businesses that we visited while we are here on a study abroad in Denmark called Tivoli. A little bit of a content overview. I'm going to be telling you guys a little bit about the company. I'm going to be giving like a business kind of breakdown slash summary. I'm going to be talking about some of the key differences that I particularly noticed or have experienced in the US workforce versus the Denmark workforce. And then just doing a little bit more of a critical analysis or my personal opinion on Tivoli as a whole as a business. So, what is Tivoli? If you don't know, Tivoli is an amusement park in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was created in 1843 and has a main goal of preserving its historical values due to it being almost 200 years old. One of the largest things is that they really like to preserve what they have, such as one of their theaters. They have a Chinese theater that was hand painted by the most recent, now retired Queen of Denmark. Some little fun facts that at least I found very fascinating, that it's home of the second oldest roller coaster in the world, which also happens to be one of five currently or one of five left existing roller coasters where the ride operator has to be sitting on the ride and have a handbrake to make sure that the ride operates smoothly. So, between a chocolate factory and a theme park, why would I choose the theme park? Well, it has many varying departments, which a chocolate factory also has. However, I believe that the very many varying departments means that there's many different types of business decisions being made, which was overall more fascinating to me as a whole. There's guest relations, there's different managerial departments, there's food departments, there's performers, there's people that do maintenance, there's ride operators. There's so many people that go into making a theme park function properly that is just so unnoticed and behind the scenes. So I thought it'd be fascinating to learn a little bit about that. So I'm basing everything off of the tour that we had in Tivoli in Copenhagen the other day. One thing, another reason is because Tivoli is such a large community aid. You might be thinking, how is a theme park a community aid? Well, while they were doing the like show around, the little getting to know the behind the scenes, I realized, that's giving back to the community. Even though we had to schedule that, we had to pay to go to that, that's giving back. We are college students who are new to the business world wanting to learn more. So even if they are making money off of it, they are giving knowledge, which is irreplaceable. Like, you can't put a value really on knowledge because knowledge is one of the most useful things to have. And they weren't only contributing knowledge about the theme park, but also the culture as a whole. They talked about SDGs or sustainable, um, like just overall, there's 17 sustainable goals that Denmark as a whole likes to follow and live by. We played a little game where we were broken into two teams. We each given cards in different scenarios that a business owner or manager would have to face, such as things such as choosing to use wood or metal, what kind of catering service to use, who you should use to build a stage, should you use a volunteer service with youth who don't have any training, or a foreign like company, contracting company that has all this, but they're from out of the country. They're going to cost a lot more. You're not going to be giving people experience. It was just overall really like intuitive. It was really giving us something that we wouldn't have otherwise even like thought to do or thought of or considered. And it really made us think not only from a business perspective, but also from make us pause and put aside our instinctual, American ways and think of how it would directly affect people in Denmark and how a Danish citizen would go about thinking. Um, uh, Moving on, they like to partner with different businesses, which I thought was really cool because personally, as from a business standpoint, I think allowing other businesses to come in and rent out such a large portion of your park is a very risky move because you don't know how that's going to affect sales. You don't know how this subcontracting business is going to treat your customers. It might it could create this whole negative aura around coming to Tivoli because you'd be like, oh, I came to Tivoli and I experienced the most horrible thing ever. And that could be really, really bad for your company, or it could be great. And people would be like, oh my gosh, I went to Tivoli and then I also got to do this while I was at Tivoli. And just overall providing more for everyone to do. So you're not just going, if you can't ride rides, but your kids can, and your kids really want to go ride the rides, your kids can ride the rides, and you can go and watch the live performances that are free. Or you could go and walk the little shopping district, or you could go play a game, or you could sit and you could eat. There's just something for everyone in the family to do. They also really focus on preservation and sustainability. Preservation not only of the world, but the company itself. As I stated before, this company is almost 200 years old. They like to have a little bit of a joke that they inspired Disney because Walt himself did indeed visit Tivoli before opening up his parks and going public with his parks. So it was a little bit fun to say that Tivoli inspired Walt Disney. Also, the sustainability part of it is that they do a lot to try and lessen their takeage or lessen their impact. One of the things that they do, which I found surprising, unlike American theme parks and American just like parks in general, where you can buy a large plastic cup for like $30, $45 that you can reuse every single time you come there. Instead, they'll sell you a little like plastic cup that I'm assuming is thicker plastic for 5 crown, and you can have your beverage, and then instead to incentivize returning the cup or recycling the cup, if you return the cup you get your 5 crown back, which is kind of like basically getting a free drink. And that way you're not only lessening the waste production by the park, but you're also just making them not have to spend more money and get more resources to create new plastic cups. So it's overall, sustainability. And the last reason that, or last short reason, short, is I just overall thought it was really fascinating how they went about their protocols because, as I said, I am from the States. So just everything about the Danish work culture is so different than what I thought. And because theme parks are so fast paced, they work with so many more people than a factory would. And there's just all these elements and risks that are associated with a theme park that I wouldn't have thought of if I had been doing research on the chocolate factory. So, overall, I just thought, why not dip my toes into this ocean of a business world that a theme park really is? Okay, so a little bit of a breakdown. Even though Tivoli is a theme park, it really prides itself in its business culture. As I said, it sells these little stalls to all these different companies. It really has something for everyone in the marketing and managerial sense. They're really user friendly. Like you don't have to buy a ride pass. Whereas other parks, you're spending so much money because it's not only inclusion into the park, but it's also so that you can go on the rides, and it's also so you can go see these shows. But no, the shows are free unless it's a specially ticketed event, and you can spend less because you have to buy the wristbands separately. So you're just paying for entries to where you can go and walk around. They have so many employees. As I said before, they have guest services, they have management, they have ride operators, they have dancers, they have maintenance people, they have people that come to swap out the lights and change the seasonal decorations. Whereas places in the States, like they'll have their guest services or ride operating departments doing all this stuff on the same budget. They're not paying them any more than they would for doing their normal job while they're doing the job of other companies that other companies pay extra for people to do. So I thought it was really cool that they have so many departments so that no one's doing extra and no one's going above. However, they said if people would like to do that, they can get compensated and do get compensated for doing the extra work that's not part of their original contract. A third thing is that they offer tours to cover the business aspects of the park and host students, such as what my class did, such as what we did. We went and we got to see the park, we got to get a little breakdown, we got to play a game, and just kind of connect our American ideas with these Danish ideas. And he said that we were thinking more sustainably and we had way different answers than the Danish students, but not in a bad way at all. and that he thought it was really refreshing that we were putting aside our natural instinct answers and trying to go a little bit more in depth and think about how this impacts not only us, but the workers and the consumers and the land that we build this park on. Um, and they're open to a variety of partnerships. There were stalls that had wood crafts, there were stalls that had crystal crafts. They had little jackets and wallets and umbrellas and stuffed animals for your kids. And they host so many people. Like I said, obviously they have to, pay people for these works of art that can't be recreated by AI. But then they also have different musical artists come in. They have people from Copenhagen. They have people from the rural towns, the coastal towns of Denmark. But then they also have people from America that fly out to do live music, live dancing. While we were there was a band playing almost the entire day, as well as some dancers. Um, Sorry about that. But they just have so many opportunities for people in the business field. And I think that's amazing. Some conflicts or struggles I think could arise with a park such as Tivoli, or the ones that I was told about. One was a 90s modernization versus conservation issue that they had, because I brought up the idea or the question of, if you are so sustainability focused and conservation and historical focused, how do you combat the issues that come with modernization? Like, the world is constantly improving. AI is a large issue right now. How do you combat things that automated with, this theater that you told us about that you can't use during the wintertime because you don't want to mess up the authenticity of it? And we were told by a tour guide that back in the 90s, there actually was this large issue that made them rethink this whole modernization versus conservation, because they were just trying to keep things exactly as they were in the 1800s. And that created a lot of backlash as things were improving and people were coming back. And it just wasn't what they wanted. Things were outdated, things were just not what the public was enjoying. So they had to start modernizing things, but then they also have that limit of what's too modernized. They don't want to change things so that people that came here 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 plus years ago would be like, what the heck is this? This is not the theme park that I love and remember. This is not what I want to do. I want my money back. There's also a lot of gains and losses with hiring. We learned about this in our little game, talking about whether or not you should hire locally, whether you should hire foreignly, cost, sustainability, all these factors that go into hiring, especially with such a large team. Like, the maintenance team alone has 2,000 plus people on it. So, there's just a difference between things such as the guest services department or the education department, where bosses and workers are on a first name basis and really following that no hierarchy thing. Whereas there's just too many people for it to be that casual and like connected with certain departments, which I found, you know, obviously it has a lot of its losses because it's not following really the no one's better than another, because obviously there's so many that they do generalize the population of these workers, but then there is obviously an overall boss. The third thing that I thought was conservation struggles or confliction. Like I said, the theater, that we were told that they can't use it during the wintertime because it just gets way too cold, that it's dangerous for dancers and actors to be doing things during that because it's not heated, and they'll freeze and they can get injured because of, like, stiff muscles or just getting sick. Um, so there's just an overall confliction there. Another thing for conservation struggles, it is a theme park. They have rides, they have buildings that use a lot of electricity, not only for the rides, but also to cook food, to keep the lights on, like, just overall. Oh, so I thought that it was just like this very large thing, and they could do things such as using some of the rides that spin, or they have a lot of waterfalls and waterways to kind of like get a little bit of electricity back, even though it might not be enough to power the whole park, but it might be enough to like power the lights in some of the shops or power some of the food vendors. Okay, so moving on to some comparison of someone who works in the United States for minimum wage versus what I've witnessed in Denmark, not only in Tivoli, but in some of the other businesses as well. So I've noticed that in the United States, there's lots of like, overtime, you have to work so many hours. And though you're supposed to get breaks, a lot of places do the minimum that they can, or such as my workplace, we don't even get breaks. Like I can work anywhere between 4 and 14 hours a day and not get a break and not get a chance to go and eat. I'm just on my feet all day running, running, running. Whereas in Denmark, there's places where you work 2 hours, you have to take a break, or you work so many hours overtime and work so many days that you have to separate it accordingly, and you have to take so many days off after the fact. Because, as the second thing is, the United States has such a bad work life balance. Like, you're just expected to work, 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 work to be able to afford your lifestyle. Whereas in Denmark, though they get paid like a decent amount in comparison to the United States, a lot of that does get taken out for taxes. However, it's so that they can have these benefits like healthcare, dental care, um, just car insurance, just insurance in general, a lot of these benefits that we have to pay so much for in the United States, it's just included for Denmark. Like they get paid to go to school. That's something that Americans could only wish for. And there's also a law in Denmark where a lot of business has to close at a reasonable time so that their workers can spend time with their families, which is not a very common thing in America, like especially for people on the lower side of income. Like I remember growing up, my dad didn't get home until late at night, so we didn't see him most nights. And that, was really straining as a family, especially with younger children. And then my third point is just hierarchy. In the United States, there's definitely hierarchy. There is definitely like bottom of the totem pole, new hire. In a restaurant, busboy and hostess, bottom of the totem pole. Then you have servers. Then you have cooks. Then you have managers. Then you have owners. There's like very much difference in respect, how people treat you, how you treat them. And like overall, I remember joining the job and having people be like, oh no, this manager, this owner is very scary of a person. And like me being scared before I even met them. Whereas in Denmark, there's little to no hierarchy. Like I said, the our tour guide said that maybe there's hierarchy in places like maintenance because there's just so many people that it's really hard to be on a first name basis with like 2,000 people. Whereas in guest services, it's very um like not exactly plain but comfort. Like, you're very much like, you don't say yes sir, yes Mr. something. You're just like, you see your boss, you're like, hey Michael. And Michael's like, hey Joshua, how are you today? How's your wife? Like very much, not exactly small talk, that's a states thing, but they care about you on a personal level. Or However, I found it interesting because, that's somewhat like it is in the States, depending on where you go. But then places like ride operations, departments like that, obviously there is more hierarchy because they're not just dealing with the emotional state of the customers and people at the parks. They're also dealing with the physical safety and having so many protocols to make sure everyone stays safe. So obviously there does have to be that level of authority where people are like, no, you're not fit to work this ride. You cannot do this. I just thought that was an interesting thing to point out. So, overall, just to wrap up everything, from a managerial perspective, Tivoli is absolutely brilliant. The idea of having a theme park that is not themed fantasy but rather has moral values of respect and conservation of history while also considering conservation of planet is so refreshing to not just be a tourist trap that they just want to get money from you. It provides family fun and planet protection all in one day. It makes the hard work feel like play. I think Tivoli is brilliant. I think the United States could learn a lot from it. So that's all. Bye bye.